I'm not just wearing a camo hat because I live in the country. I'm wearing it because it's Sean Cody. You may have just gotten my number, or you may have answered every single call I've ever had. And if it's the latter, I love y'all, okay? If you're the latter, some of this may sound familiar, okay? And I apologize for that, but I do have the memory of a goldfish. In case somehow you forgot or you hate me, my name's Zach and I live in Alberta, Canada. Alberta has been called the Texas of Canada, not for our views, but just because we got a lot of oil and lots of cows. Another thing that we have is gay people, because I'm one of them. Surprise. I know I've said many a times, like, I try not make being gay my personality, but it is kind of... It's one of the many facets and faculties of the inner machinations of my mind. It's also put me in many challenging situations in my life, from being a child to, like, yesterday even. I may sound like a broken record, but I wasn't born in Alberta. I'm an outsider. I was born in British Columbia, which is right beside Alberta. Okay, and it's like mountains and so freaking beautiful. It's so freaking beautiful. Why did I say freaking? Fuck. Growing up there, and I'm just gonna assume, I know not to assume because it makes an ASS out of you and me, but I'm gonna assume that growing up gay anywhere in Canada might be roughly the same idea, because I don't think we vary that much from province to province. I'm just gonna say it. That could be wrong, and if it is wrong, tell me. My parents and my family and I, we all moved away from British Columbia when I was still a wee child, so I don't really remember much from there. But what I do know is that I lived there when I realized, damn it, I'm gay. I grew up in what I would call like a mildly religious household. We weren't like super religious, like going to church every single Sunday, but we did go to church most Sundays. And my mom's dad, which I've told you guys about this, he was like a traveling pastor. He was a traveling pastor, and it was like Christianity type stuff. My dad, he grew up in Quebec, which is like the French place. So it was a lot of Catholicism type shit. Okay. But growing up, I would say that I was pretty religious. I mean, I believed in God, went to church, did my prayers before bed, all that sort of fun jazz. And I'm not saying that I turned my back on it completely and evil, but I would say that I just have a different relationship with it now, especially moving out to Alberta, where there's still, I would say, maybe even a larger religious sort of influence in just how we are. I just have a different relationship with spirituality and all that kind of jazz now, okay? I know when I call you guys, I'm jumping all over the place, but we're not going to jump into that yet, okay? This is about when I was just a wee boy. I'm taking you guys through this. What was I talking about? But growing up in BC, which is what we call it, British Columbia, BC. Not going to lie, it was pretty freaking cool. My dad, he had a job where he built houseboats, and my mom, I don't remember what she did, but I just know that she took care of us. This is going to be a little side note, but I swear it's true. I've told this to all of my friends, but we had like a bunch of cats because we lived in like a sort of cabin in like a very small town of like 15 people, a village even. And we had a bunch of cats, and I swear I remember this as a child, and you can ask my parents. The cats and the rabbits got freaky and created cabbits. I'm not joking. If you're a scientist, don't tell me if that's possible, because I choose to believe that it is. They had like, they looked like cats, but they had like rabbit ears and like a little tail and big legs, and they jumped around. But besides the cabbits, I mean, I don't really have much memory of anything because I was a child. But I do remember that our neighbor, he was a boy, of course. He was a boy much like myself, a male. And I do remember going into our shop and kissing. I do remember doing that. And I do remember rolling paper into a leaf and smoking it. Of course, my parents weren't there. I was really lucky that I have amazing parents. And Mom, if you answered this, why do you answer this but not my calls? I know I may look old because I have crow's feet, but I'm not that old, guys. I was born in 2001, which is only 25 years ago. But honestly, that was awesome, because that just meant I grew up with Kylie Minogue. I grew up with Nelly Furtado. Okay? I grew up with taste. And I do have a vivid memory, which I've most definitely told you guys about. I remember the music video for I Just Can't Get You Out of My Head by Nelly Furtado was playing on the TV. And my older brother was watching the TV, just standing at the TV with his soother and like... And I know what he was thinking, that freak. that freak. Because what I was feeling was totally different. I was watching her. I would have been like, I don't even know, 2 or 3 years old. 4. I don't know. I just remember her in the white. And if she wasn't in white in that music video, guys, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. But I just remember thinking that she was fierce. And Nelly Furtado, fierce. Also Canadian icon. But obviously, as a kid, you don't really know about gay. You don't really know about gay. I mean, I think I might have known about it somehow by then from like just media and stuff like that. I think Brokeback Mountain was released already, so there was that whole situation, which looking back, y'all, it was robbed at the Oscars. So I definitely knew about gay, but I wasn't like letting it concern me. That wasn't my business because I was like, I'm just a kid. I'm just a kid. Yeah, I kiss my neighbor who's a boy. Yeah, I think Kylie Minogue is fierce. That's just called being a boy. But after living in BC for a couple years, my family and I, we all moved out to Alberta. I'm Alberta bound. Unfortunately, because if you just Google pictures of like interior British Columbia, and then if you Google pictures of like Albertan prairies, there's definitely a difference in the mana, if you will, of the land. Sometimes in the winter when the ground's covered in snow and the sky's white, it just looks like you're in a void. But I can't lie, y'all, moving out here was amazing because I met the people that I know now. My people. I met my best friends and my friend with the baby. I met the baby. But we moved from a small village of 15 people to like a town of 900. There's not even a stoplight here. There's no sort of Tim Hortons. There's nothing. But what there is a school that teaches from kindergarten, like the wee children, all the way to grade 12. And you can graduate, guys. That's cool. That's what a fucking school is. And I will say that there is most definitely something in the water here that's turning everyone gay. I've mentioned it before, but I just think like the ratio for a town this small of straight people to gay people is very high, and it made me, it's really the catalyst for my theory that most people are bisexual. By the time I moved out here, I was like around 6 or 7. At that point, I was kind of becoming sentient, and I was like, oh, this is weird, guys. Like, how come I don't want to kiss girls? How come I don't want to kiss girls and I just want to kiss guys? And I think girls are fierce, but guys are sexy. I don't know. Those sorts of realizations were already happening. And it didn't help that for some reason I just attract like secret DL people. I don't know how I did it. Obviously, I wasn't on Grindr at like 13 years old, guys. But somehow they found me. Obviously, when I'm talking about DL people, I'm talking about just people around my age that were also figuring their stuff out. Because calling like someone really young DL is really dark-sided. Okay. But growing up here, of course, we still attended church. I think I stopped going to church around 15. So there was still plenty of years to praise the Lord and be gay. I had 2 pretty close guy friends growing up. And for some reason, like, we were just getting freaky. I don't know. I can't explain it. Like, they're both just straight guys. But growing up, we were just freaky. We were just seeing sort of what happened. Just like I called you guys about. It's good and fun to experiment, guys, and figure out what you want. Now, the thing is, they are still both DL now, so I don't know that they completely figured that out, but that's okay. Let's just say when I was going for a sleepover, there wasn't much sleeping happening. I will just acknowledge that it is kind of weird to talk about because I was underage, right? So let's just sort of keep that in our minds as we progress forward, okay? So at this point around 12, 13, I know that I'm gay. I know that I'm a gay guy. I kissed boys before and I liked it. I kissed a boy and I liked it. But because of the environment I grew up in with like religion or I don't know, just biases, whatever it was, homophobia, I still was like, I'm not about to tell anyone this. This will be my little secret. Forever, I guess. I'm sure lots of gay people, lesbian people, trans people, we all kind of have that shared sort of feeling when you're growing up of having this unbearable secret that sometimes you can be lucky and, you know, you grow up in an environment where that's completely welcome, which is the way it should be. Or you can grow up in a different sort of environment where it's completely frowned upon and there's a threat of violence. Or you can grow up somewhere in the middle. Thankfully, I grew up in somewhere in the middle. I say thankfully because the other side is terrifying. And if you're in that situation, y'all, just come out here. Come out here. Just say you're going to the store. Just say, hey, I'm going to go get some chocolate milk, okay? I'll be right back. And then get the fuck out of there. Gonna be honest, kind of forget where I was going with this. Right. No, I still haven't got it. So growing up, we had this thing in the church called youth group, which is basically where like all like preteens get together and your pastor makes you put a card on your mouth. And then the girl beside you has to sort of transfer it. And you do lots of fun games like that. It's not weird at all. Now, I've definitely told some of you guys about this, but I remember being in youth group. One night, we were all in like a circle, and the pastor was there with us. And I don't remember if it was me who asked the question or someone else. But in this circle, it was me and a bunch of other kids and a guy that I had been kissing on, okay? We had been kissing on together in secret. No one knew. And I don't remember if it was me who asked the question or someone else, but they asked the pastor, like, what would you do if like you saw two boys kissing? Like, wouldn't that be weird? And then the pastor said, well, I would be okay with the fact that they will burn in hell for eternity. Oh, wow. That has become a very like anchoring point in my mind, and like even like trying to deal with sexuality and stuff now, because it's something you don't just like figure out. It's a learning curve throughout your whole life. And that has been an anchoring point that I'm always like, oh, wow. Oh, wow. Because at that point, I had to have been 12 or 13. And when you're already like a child who doesn't know how to express themselves fully, you just think like, oh, I'm a kid. I'll just do whatever I want. And then you hear like an adult, especially like if you grew up in a religious household, pastors have like their voice sort of has more weight to it in a sense, okay? So hearing that from him kind of did a number on me. And I don't remember if it was that night, but it was definitely a night around that time in my life when I remember going home and I was alone in my room, and I just remember crying and praying to God to make me like girls, which if you think about that, that's like really crazy and sad, because I was just a kid, like I was 13, crying and praying to God that I was someone else, someone that I wasn't. So guys, just know if you're an adult and you're around kids and stuff, lead with love and light. Even peers around your age. Just lead with love and light, guys. How hard is it? Your words have an impact on people. So just be nice. Growing up, I will say that I am extremely grateful that I had access to the most beautiful place in the world, YouTube. Because I remember living vicariously through Connor Franta, Troye Sivan, Tyler Oakley, my girls. I remember watching them all the time, every time they uploaded, loved it. Now, I do remember when Troye Sivan came out. Tyler, I feel like was he always just gay? I feel like he was always gay, and I love that about him. And Connor, I just remember my gaydar going off, and I just knew. But y'all, that's the reason why gay in the media, I don't care what you have to say. Yes, oh my God, it's someone different than you. Oh my God, there's someone not like me on the TV. How crazy. And yes, it may not be entirely realistic for everyone in a movie to be gay, but look around you. There's gay people everywhere. One thing I will say that I'm super happy for and super grateful for, and I think is incredibly important, is that now there's like the LGBTQ section on Netflix. There's multiple movies about it. There's Heated Rivalry. You have access to the, 4 gay films that were made before like 5 years ago. Because growing up, the only gay film I knew about was Brokeback Mountain. Will I say, is that suitable for children? Probably not, because it's heartbreaking. One movie I will say, I watched this a couple days ago with my mom, that I heard about it, but I'd never watched it before, is Boys Don't Cry. It's from the 90s. And yes, some of the language they use isn't entirely accurate, but that was a movie that I watched, and I haven't had that feeling in forever, where I watched and I was like, this is important. Again, the language is not entirely accurate, and it's based off a true story, and it is incredibly heartbreaking. So fair warning before you watch it. It is so sad. It is so sad. My mom and I were bawling. But that is a completely different conversation. What was I talking about? So around the time that I was 15, I've talked about this before, I discovered the song Heaven. Troy started releasing music. It changed everyone's lives. The world stopped. But when he released the song Heaven, that's when things sort of shifted for me. Because I was like, this is a gay guy who's like super cool, super successful. He's out there. He is just doing his thing. And he's doing it flawlessly. But in the song Heaven, which I highly recommend It's amazing. The music video, everything. I love it. He says like, and I'm counting at 15, counting at 15. And I was 15 at the time. And I remember that lyric it just like gave me so much power. And I was like, I'm going to do it. I know that I'm gay. I prayed so many times as a child. It's not going away. I tried to kiss girls at this point. Didn't feel anything. It's not going away. So one day I just gathered the courage and I was like, screw it. I'm just going to tell everyone. And by everyone, of course, I just mean my older brother. And I remember this was an interesting choice, but I remember I was just sitting with him in his room and I was like about to start crying. And I was like, I just have to tell you something. And I had he was like, what do you want to say? And I couldn't say it, of course, because I was choking up. So I just wrote on a piece of paper and you'll never believe what it said. It said that I was pansexual. Which I like that I went for a deeper cut. The thing is, I like to keep people guessing, and who knows, maybe I am. Maybe little 15-year-old Zach was right, because sometimes I do wonder. I do. But I remember my brother just gave me a hug, and he was like, I gaff. Like, I still love you. And that shit hit. And to this day, even though there's been some crazy things that have happened in my life, like in my family life, I still never forget that. Okay. At that point, my little brother is like 5 years younger than me. I was like, who cares if he knows? So I didn't really bother telling him. But then came the time that I had to tell my parents. Because I told my older brother, all my friends knew. No one gave a damn. Which, again, super grateful for. Because my friends, I don't know that I would be here without them, okay? Again, I may have the memory of a goldfish, but I do remember telling y'all some of this. I just remember it was so beautiful out. It was a warm, like maybe early summer day, maybe spring day. And I just remember the clouds, everything looked so beautiful. And I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to tell my mom. I'm going to tell my mom that I am a cocksucker. And I remember I just went into her room and I was like, Mom, I have to tell you something. And she was like, oh, what is it? And I was like, like I was like being coy about it. But I was also like so filled with adrenaline that I was like excited to tell her because I was like, I'm going to be free. I'm going to be free. Let's just put that to the side for a second because y'all, you don't have to feel any pressure to come out. You know, it doesn't really change much except that sort of little evil, the darkness inside of you is just like, you just kind of throw it away. You're just like, shut the hell up because you do feel more comfortable in your skin, but also at the end of the day, it doesn't really change much because unless you're walking around with like a name tag that says, hi, I'm gay, people can usually tell. Somehow for me, even though I grew up looking like whodunit and ran, it was still a shock to like everyone. I don't know how, but I remember telling my mom, I was like, Mom, I got something to tell you. And then she was like, what is it? What? And then I was like super nervous. And then she was like, do you have a girlfriend? And I was just like, oh, wow. So it's not that, right? I was like, so it's kind of the opposite of that. And she was like, what? And I said, I'm gay. And as I've said before, when I told you all about this, I have no hard feelings about my mom. We joke about it. I love her. I have the best parents I could have ever asked for. This was just kind of it was a lot for her. She was going through a lot already. And I was just like, well, I'm going to tell you I'm gay. And, you know, she grew up with a pastor for a dad. So, hello. Also at this point, my older brother, whom I'd already came out to, he was sort of practicing, let's just say the dark arts, right? He was sort of a Satanist, right? So that was kind of a lot, especially for like a sort of religious woman, right? So I do remember my mom, she was like, she maybe started crying and she went into her bathroom and she was like, one of my sons is a Satanist and the other's a fag. Which, I mean, she kind of clocked it. But literally not even a week later, we were perfectly fine, totally chill, because she talked to her mom about it. And my grandma, shout out to you, girl. I love you so much. I know I've said this already, but she said, that's fucking awesome because she loves Adam Lambert. Thank you again to Adam. I forgot to shout you out, Adam. Love you. Love you. Also, the most underrated vocals maybe in the world. As for my dad, he truly the gaff. He the gaff because he grew up in the gay neighborhood in Montreal. He'd seen all before. He was just like, okay, like, what else can you do? Fake. So at that point, the darkness inside of me had been thrown and cast away into the world. And then I was just kind of gay. But then this is when things sort of shifted for me in the sort of romantic sort of relations sector, okay? Because when you are one of the only gay people within a very large radius, anyone who has an inkling has that voice inside of them that says, I want to suck a wiener. All of those men are called to you like a light in the darkness. Except the thing is, they are the darkness. As I said, I had like a 6-year situationship with a DL hockey player, right? I've told you all about that. He looked like Noah Beck. So sexy, and I think about him often. That's when the sort of DL people really came into my life. And the crazy thing is, I was like 16, 17. Of course, I wasn't on Grindr. I don't even think I knew about it. So these things just happened upon me. They were thrust upon me. But honestly, besides crying every now and again about that situationship, things were pretty good. Like, I was just a gay guy with my friends, just living life. High school was great because we grew up in a really small town. That doesn't necessarily correlate to having a good high school experience, but it did in my situation because we were all like brothers and sisters. We grew up together. But then I graduated, went to college for a semester, and then COVID happened and I got kicked out. But while I was there, that situationship, he also went to that college and we did get freaky a couple times, and his roommate came home early when we were getting freaky and I had to hide in the bathroom. Now, this is something I've told some of y'all before, but if you don't know already, this is going to be a trigger warning. I'm being serious. Trigger warning: assault. Around the time I was 19 or 20, my friends and I, we all went out to the bar here, and there was a guy there who was like flirting with me and all this sort of stuff. And long story short, he brought me back to his motel room and he like got on top of me and stuff. And the vibes were like, oh, we're going to get freaky. And then he started, again, trigger warning, violence. He got on top of me and he started strangling me and I couldn't breathe. I thought it was over party, but then I just like, I don't know, I just got the power to just kick him off and stuff. And I ran back to my friend's house and my mom picked me up and all that sort of stuff. So that was a very rude awakening that, yep, there's still evil in the world. And just because you're out and things go good doesn't mean they always will be. Thankfully, in the sort of extreme homophobia sort of situations, that has been my only one. And I'm grateful that not that it turned out the way it did, but that I'm alive today. But it was definitely a wake-up call that, you know, even though you're around the people you love and stuff and that support you, there's always going to be evil out there, unfortunately. But anyways, around that time, I had discovered Grindr. Bit of a lighter note. On Grindr, I started talking to this guy. He just lived a couple towns over, like 40 minutes away from me, which I was willing to drive to get dick down. We had a super fun little summer fling together. We got freaky many times, even a couple times here in the Kia Sorrento. But on my end, because of course I do have sort of attachment issues that I'm working on, it didn't really end up going anywhere. And plus he moved like hours away for school. So I was like, hey, whatever. A couple years later, I found my first kind of boyfriend. We dated for like 4 weeks. He was the one that like pissed on me in the shower and hated women. I sure know how to choose them. And then for a while after him, I was just in a dry spell. And it was self-inflicted because I was like, you know what? I don't have the overwhelming urge sexually to just leave the door open and come inside and use me. Which, nothing wrong with that, I guess, as long as you're being safe. But I was just like, you know what? I am who I am and I can have fun on my own, okay? And I have my friends. Like, what more do I need? A year and a half, 2 years, 5, 10 years, I don't know how long. An Australian guy moved here. He was working at that same bar, which I really never went back to. But just shout out to that Australian guy because you and I, we had some fun together, okay? Him and I were getting freaky on and off for like months, 6 months maybe. I'd go over, we'd watch TV, we'd watch movies together. It was super fun. We got freaky a lot, many times a night. But he eventually had to move back to Australia. So I was just back vibing out alone, which I was totally fine with. I love to be alone, guys. I love to be alone because then I can just sit in my car and scream at you. And then came the fateful day that I met the guy from New Zealand, right? So I'm sort of staying in the Southern Hemisphere, and he's the one that the Being Gay Sucks video the catalyst of all of this was about. Again, put me through a little bit of emotional trauma, but at the end of the day, I'm super grateful for that he did that. And I'm super grateful that I was like, you know what? I need to talk to someone about this because I'm losing my mind. That was the best crash out I've ever had because I got to meet all of you guys. And I love you guys. And gals. Again, as I've said many times before, there was a bunch of baddies in my DMs after that FaceTime. And then I messaged one of them. We were FaceTiming. We were talking. We went on trips and dates together. And we broke up not too long ago. And it ended horribly. Has this wrinkle been like that the whole time? Oh my gosh. Do you guys know any good doctors? I'm trying to get the Chris. And that brings us to where we are today. Or about last weekend, because it was my friend's birthday, as I told you guys about. Woo! And we went away to this cabin out in the woods. It was so much fun. I love my friend so much. And the baby was there. It was just awesome. But one of the things was that we sort of read about it on Airbnb, but we were like, oh, whatever. It was kind of like like Christian commune situation. Don't get me wrong. It was super cool. There was like a sauna, all this, just like a cabin in the woods. I love it. I loved it with my favorite people. But one night we were kind of drinking and stuff. Obviously the mom wasn't drinking. She was watching baby. But us boys, we were all drinking. And then we went into this one cabin where the Christian people sort of play music and just sort of vibe out and smoke like a long tobacco pipe. The vibes there, honestly, the most like comforting place I've ever been. Maybe it's because we were out in the woods and I just fuck with that shit hard. But the vibes were just super amazing. And the one like leader, I would call him the leader of the group. Him and I were like out in the kitchen. We were getting some wine, sipping on the Lord's blood. And I just said to him, I was like, I feel super comfortable here. Like I felt super comfortable. So I just wanted to ask him what his sort of views were on gay people. I will say not something I normally do because I gaff most of the time. Like I don't care. But I was like, the vibes here are so chill. Everyone is such good energy. It was like hippie vibes. It was hippie vibes, like one with the earth. I was like, this is my shit. So I was like, could I like move in here? So I asked him, what are your thoughts on gay people? And he basically just said, it's the devil in my ear. It's the devil in my ear. And that, you know, if I'm not destined for love in this life with a woman, and maybe in the next one, I'll find a woman that loves me. So that was kind of a smack in the face. Again, that immediately brought me back to when I was a kid. And that pastor was like, you know, it's fine because I'll burn in hell. It brought me back right there. And I was like, fuck, the vibes were so good here. And then you have to you have to pull that shit. Honestly, it was super endearing. Like, he put his hand on my chest and he was like praying to God he tried to pray the gay away, right? So I will have an update for you guys in about, you know, I'll give it 1 or 2 weeks to see if I'm still gay. But then that brings us to where we are now. A 24-year-old alone in his car. Awesome. All things considered, I'm super grateful for the life that I have and that I have sort of brought upon myself, because every sort of wacky, crazy thing that has happened in my life has made me to the person I am today and led me to the people that I know today. And guys, you know what? I'm just feeling #grateful. But honestly, I think the only way I'd feel more #grateful is if someone ate my ass.